I thought it was a mistake until the officer slid the hospital form across the table. My name, my birth date, my insurance. That baby is yours on paper, he said. Then my father begged, don't ruin us. So I gave them everything. That was when I understood my family had not made one desperate mistake. They had made a plan. And I had been chosen as the sacrifice. 2 days before that, I was sitting in a conference room at work, trying to focus on a meeting I barely remember now. Someone was talking through numbers on a screen. My laptop was open in front of me. I had a pen in my hand, but I hadn't written anything useful in 20 minutes because I kept thinking about whether I had packed my daughter's water bottle that morning. It was a normal Tuesday. The kind of day where nothing feels important until everything changes. There was a soft knock on the glass door. My manager looked up first. Then I did. A woman from the front desk stood there, pale and uncomfortable, like she had been sent to deliver news she didn't want to understand. Amanda, she said quietly. There are people downstairs asking for you. I stood halfway out of my chair. Is it my kids? She didn't answer right away. That silence made my stomach drop. I grabbed my phone and rushed out of the room, already checking for missed calls from school, daycare, my husband, anyone. There was nothing. No voicemail. No text. No emergency alert. Just my own reflection in the elevator doors, staring back at me with wide eyes. When I reached the lobby, I saw 2 strangers waiting near the security desk. One was a woman with a folder pressed against her chest. The other was a police officer standing beside her, calm but serious. The woman stepped forward first. Amanda, she asked. Yes, I said. What happened? Are my children okay? She glanced at the officer before answering. My name is Rebecca. I'm with Child Protective Services. This is Officer Christopher. We need to speak with you privately about a newborn girl admitted to a hospital under your name. For a second, I honestly thought I had misheard her. A newborn? I said. Rebecca nodded carefully. Yes. I almost laughed because the sentence was so impossible. My youngest was 4. I had not been pregnant. I had not been to a hospital. I had not given birth to anyone. There's been a mistake, I said. I don't have a newborn. Officer Christopher didn't accuse me. He didn't raise his voice. That almost made it worse. He opened a folder and placed a printed hospital intake form on the small table between us. I looked down. My name was there. My date of birth. My insurance information. My old address. For a few seconds, all I could hear was the low buzz of the lobby lights. Rebecca spoke gently. A baby girl was born yesterday morning. The hospital has concerns about the information used during admission. The mother left before the situation could be properly resolved. Because your identity appears on the paperwork, we need to verify what happened and make sure any children in your home are safe. I stared at the form until the letters blurred. That isn't me, I whispered. I was here yesterday. I was at work. We understand, Rebecca said. That's why we're here to verify. I shook my head. No, I haven't had a baby. I haven't been pregnant in years. Officer Christopher leaned forward slightly. Do you know anyone who may have had access to your personal information? The answer came to me so fast it made me cold. My sister, Stephanie. I didn't say her name right away because once I did, the last few months started lining up in my head. The missing copy of my old ID after a family dinner. My mother asking strange questions about my insurance card during a casual phone call. My father saying Stephanie was going through something but refusing to explain. The way my parents had been speaking to me lately, softer than usual, like they were trying to keep me calm before something fell on me. Rebecca watched my face change. Amanda, she said. Is there someone you're thinking of? My sister, I said finally. Her name is Stephanie. Officer Christopher wrote it down. My throat tightened. She has had problems for years. My parents keep covering for her. Every time something happens, they say she's fragile. They say I'm the strong one. Rebecca's expression softened, but her voice stayed professional. We're not here to decide that today. We need facts. Can you prove where you were yesterday? Yes, I said quickly. Work records. Security cameras. My husband. My kid's school. My doctor. Anything you need. The officer nodded. That will help. I wanted that to comfort me. It didn't. Because the paper was still on the table. The paper said I had given birth to a baby and left before the hospital could finish asking questions. No matter how calm everyone was being, I understood what that meant. My name was attached to a child I had never held. My insurance was tied to a hospital stay I had never authorized. A government agency was asking about my children because someone had used my life like a costume and left me standing in the consequences. Rebecca asked if she could visit my house that evening to confirm my children were safe. I said yes because saying no would have made everything worse. Then I excused myself, walked into a bathroom stall, locked the door, and called my husband. Andrew answered on the second ring. "Hey," he said. "Everything okay?" I tried to speak, but nothing came out. "Amanda, there's a baby," I said. He paused. "What?" "A baby at the hospital. Under my name." The silence on the other end was so heavy I could hear him breathing. Then his voice changed. "Where are you?" "At work." "I'm coming." By the time I got back to the lobby, Rebecca and Officer Christopher had gathered the basic information they needed. They weren't cruel. They weren't dramatic. They were careful, which somehow made the whole thing feel more real. Before they left, Rebecca gave me her card. "We'll work through this," she said. "But please understand, until the records are corrected, your name is part of the case. My name, my clean record, my children, my job, my home. All of it had been pulled into Stephanie's chaos without my consent." When Andrew arrived, I was sitting on a bench outside the building with my phone in both hands. He crouched in front of me. "What happened?" I handed him the copy of the hospital form. He read it once, then again. His jaw tightened. "Who did this?" he asked. I looked down at the pavement. "I think you know." He closed his eyes. Stephanie had been a shadow over our marriage for years. She wasn't someone we talked about casually. She was the emergency call at midnight. The missing money. The apology that always arrived right before another favor. The person my parents insisted was getting better, even when the rest of us could see she wasn't. Andrew had always tried to be respectful. But respect had limits. "She used your identity to give birth," he said quietly. "I don't know everything yet, but you know enough." I nodded. He stood and looked toward the parking lot. "We're going home. We're pulling every document we have. Then we're calling the hospital, the insurance company, and the police." I should have felt relieved that he had a plan. Instead, I felt sick. Because somewhere under the fear and anger, there was another thought I hated myself for having. There was a newborn girl in a hospital. My niece. A baby who had not chosen any of this. And the people who created the mess were already making me responsible for cleaning it up. That evening, Rebecca came to our house with Officer Christopher. I had spent 2 hours panic cleaning rooms that were already clean. I lined up the kids' shoes by the door. I checked the fridge twice. I folded a blanket on the couch for no reason. Andrew finally took my hands and said, "Stop. You are not the one who did something wrong." I knew that. But when a social worker is coming to your home because your name is attached to a newborn you never had, fear does not listen to logic. Jacob sat at the kitchen table coloring a dinosaur purple. Emily was building a crooked tower with blocks in the living room. They were safe, warm, fed, and completely unaware that adults had dragged our family into something ugly. Rebecca spoke to the children gently. She looked around the house. She asked basic questions about routines, school, emergency contacts, and medical care. Nothing beyond what the situation required, but every question still felt like a needle. When she was done, she closed her folder. "Your children appear safe and well cared for," she said. My knees almost gave out. Andrew put a hand on my back. Rebecca continued, "This visit does not mean you are being accused. It means the records created a concern we had to verify. The fastest way to separate you from this is to fully document the identity misuse." Identity misuse. Such a calm phrase. It sounded like someone had borrowed a library card, not like my sister had walked into a hospital and placed a newborn, a medical file, a bill, and a child welfare case under my name. After Rebecca and the officer left, Andrew locked the front door and turned to me. "Call your mother." I didn't want to. I already knew what her voice would sound like. Small. Shaky. Hurt before I even accused her. My mother had a way of making herself sound wounded by consequences she helped create. But I called. She answered quickly. "Amanda, did you know?" I asked. There was no greeting. No careful lead-in. Just the question. A pause. Then, know what? My stomach turned. "Don't do that." Another pause. This one told me everything. Andrew stood beside me, arms crossed, listening. My mother exhaled into the phone. "Amanda, before you get upset, you need to understand how scared everyone was." There it was. Not denial. Explanation. "Where is Stephanie?" I asked. "She's not well." "Where is she?" "I don't know exactly." "Did she use my name at the hospital?" My mother started crying. Not loud crying. Controlled crying. Familiar crying. Crying with a purpose. She was terrified, my mother said. She thought if she used her own name, everything would come crashing down at once. She was afraid they'd take the baby immediately. She was afraid she'd be taken into custody. She called us and she sounded desperate. I gripped the counter. So you gave her my information? We didn't think it would go this far. How far did you think it would go? My mother didn't answer. How did she get my insurance information? I asked. She had some of it already. That's not what I asked. My mother's voice dropped. Your father had copies of some old family paperwork. Emergency documents. Things from when you were younger. We thought it might help keep everything calm until we could figure out what to do. I looked at Andrew. His face had gone still. You gave her my identity, I said. No, my mother said quickly. We helped her get medical care. Under my name. She was having a baby. Under my name. She's your sister. And I am your daughter. The line went quiet. For a second, I thought maybe that sentence had reached her. Maybe she would hear the damage in it. Maybe she would understand that I was not an emergency account they could withdraw from whenever Stephanie ran out of options. Then she said, You've always been able to handle things. I laughed once. It sounded nothing like me. That's why you chose me? We didn't choose you, she said. We chose the only path that kept the baby safe. No. You chose the path that kept Stephanie hidden. My mother's crying sharpened. That is cruel. What's cruel is having CPS come to my job. She didn't mean for that to happen. What's cruel is using my insurance. We thought it would be corrected later. What's cruel is making my children part of this. My mother went silent again. That silence was the answer. She had thought about Stephanie. She had thought about the baby. She had thought about my father. She had thought about herself. But she had not thought about Jacob and Emily in the way a grandmother should have. Andrew took the phone from my hand and put it on speaker. My mother sniffed. Andrew, please don't make this worse. He leaned closer. Nancy, listen carefully. Amanda did not make this worse. You did. Her tone changed instantly. You don't understand family. I understand my family, he said. My wife and my children. That's who I'm protecting. My mother made a wounded sound. So you're turning her against us? No, Andrew said. You put her in a position where choosing her own children feels like betrayal. That's on you. She hung up. For a while, neither of us moved. Then the messages started. First from my father. Call me now. Then again. Amanda, answer your phone. Then my aunt. Your mother is sobbing. Whatever you think happened, don't be cruel. Then a cousin. Please don't involve police. This can be handled quietly. Quietly. That word made something in me snap. My whole life, quietly had meant one thing. Don't embarrass the family. Don't make your sister feel judged. Don't tell people what really happened. Don't ask too many questions. Don't be angry when your parents miss something important because Stephanie has another emergency. Quietly was not peace. Quietly was a blanket thrown over a fire while everyone pretended the smoke wasn't killing us. That night, Andrew and I sat at the kitchen table after the kids went to bed. We made a list of everything we could remember. The missing ID. The strange insurance questions. The times my mother asked for personal details and acted offended when I asked why. The motel Stephanie had been staying near weeks earlier. The last number she used to text me. A voicemail from my father saying, Your sister may need help soon, so don't be cold when we call. By midnight, the table was covered in notes. Andrew looked exhausted. I was past exhaustion. I felt hollow. Then my phone rang. My father. Andrew looked at me. Speaker. I answered. My father didn't say hello. You need to stop this before it becomes official, he said. It already is official, I replied. My name is on hospital records. You can fix that without destroying everyone. How? Tell them it was confusion. Say Stephanie panicked. Say you're willing to help temporarily while we sort it out. I stared at the wall. Help how? His voice got quieter. Take responsibility for the baby on paper. Just for a little while. Andrew stood so fast his chair scraped against the floor. I raised one hand, asking him to wait. You want me to claim a baby I didn't give birth to? Not forever, my father said. Just until your sister gets stable. Dad, you are asking me to lie to the hospital, child services, the insurance company, and the police. I'm asking you to save your sister. No, I said. You're asking me to risk my children. His voice hardened. Your children are fine. They were questioned because of this. But they weren't taken. I went very still. That was the sentence that changed everything. To him, nothing counted as harm unless my children were physically removed from my home. The fear, the humiliation, the legal danger, the financial risk, none of it mattered because the worst possible thing had not happened yet. My father kept talking. If you file a formal report, Stephanie could be arrested. Your mother and I could be investigated. We could lose everything trying to defend ourselves. Is that what you want? I whispered. I wanted parents who protected me too. He ignored that. You have a good life, he said. A husband. A home. Healthy kids. You can survive this. There it was again. The family math. Stephanie had less, so I owed her more. I had stability, so they were allowed to take from it. I had children, but somehow Stephanie's crisis mattered more than their safety. My father lowered his voice. Please, Amanda. Don't ruin us. I looked at Andrew. His eyes were wet, but his face was firm. I didn't ruin us, I said. Then I hung up. The next morning, Andrew drove me to the hospital. I didn't know what I expected to feel when we pulled into the parking lot. Anger, maybe. Panic. A need to prove something. Instead, I felt grief. Not for my parents. Not even for Stephanie. For the baby. Amy. That was the name on the file. A tiny girl whose first day in the world had been turned into a lie before she could even open her eyes properly. The hospital staff couldn't tell me everything, and I didn't ask them to. By then, security and patient records had already flagged the case. A woman at the front desk checked my real ID, called a supervisor, and brought us into a small office with beige walls and a tissue box on the table. A hospital representative explained that a newborn had been admitted under my information. She chose her words carefully. There were medical concerns. The baby was being monitored. The identity issue had been reported through the proper channels. I asked one question. Is she safe? The woman's expression softened. She is being cared for. That answer was all I was allowed to have. And somehow, it was both enough and not enough. Before we left, a staff member walked me near the newborn unit. I didn't hold Amy. I didn't touch her. I only saw her from a distance, small and still beneath soft hospital light, surrounded by people whose job was to keep her comfortable and safe. I pressed my hand to the glass. I hated Stephanie for putting her there. I hated my parents for turning that baby into leverage. And I hated myself for feeling afraid of an innocent child. Because that was the truth I didn't want to admit. Amy deserved love. She deserved safety. She deserved a family that did not begin her life with false paperwork and whispered plans. But if I stepped into the lie, I would not be saving her. I would be teaching my family that they could use my children as collateral whenever Stephanie created another disaster. Andrew stood beside me quiet. After a minute, he said, "You can care about her and still refuse to carry the lie." I nodded, but tears slid down my face anyway. When we got back to the car, I had 17 missed calls. My mother. My father. My aunt. A cousin. Another number I didn't recognize. Then a text from my mother. "Your sister is terrified. Please don't make this worse." I typed back before I could stop myself. She made it worse when she used my name. My mother replied almost instantly. "You sound heartless." I stared at that word. Heartless. I thought of Amy behind the glass. I thought of Jacob asking why a strange woman had come into our house with a folder. I thought of Emily asking if Mommy was sad because she did something bad. I thought of my children's beds being checked because my sister had walked into a hospital wearing my life like a mask. No, my heart was the problem. For years, it had been too soft in the wrong places. I used to answer Stephanie's calls even after I promised myself I wouldn't. I used to send money and call it groceries because that sounded less enabling. I used to let my parents talk me into silence because fighting them took more energy than I had. Every boundary I built, they treated like a temporary fence. This time, there was no fence left. There was only a line. And if I didn't hold it, my children would learn that family means letting people harm you as long as they cry afterward. That afternoon, Andrew and I spoke with a legal advisor. I won't pretend I understood every detail. My brain was tired, and the words all sounded heavy. Liability. Records. Documentation. Investigation. But the meaning was clear. If I tried to fix it privately, I could stay tied to the hospital file. If I agreed to help temporarily, I could create more confusion about whether I had accepted responsibility. If I refused to make a formal report, my insurance and my household could remain tangled in something I did not do. The legal advisor looked at me across the desk and said, "You do not correct a false record by participating in another falsehood." I swallowed hard. So what do? You tell the truth clearly. You document everything. You file the report. The words landed like a door closing. Not because I wanted revenge. Because there was no softer exit that didn't require me to keep lying. On the drive home, I called my father one last time. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to give him a chance to be my father before he became part of the report. Maybe I wanted him to say he was sorry without turning the apology into another request. He answered immediately. Amanda, he said. Thank God. Your mother is falling apart. I'm filing the report. The silence was instant. Then his voice came back low and sharp. No, you're not. I am. You do that, and you are choosing strangers over blood. I'm choosing my children. Don't hide behind them. That hurt more than I expected. I'm not hiding behind them, I said. I'm standing in front of them. My father breathed hard through his nose. You think you're better than us? No. I think I'm done being used by you. His voice cracked then, but not with sadness. With rage. Your sister could go to jail. She used my identity. She was scared. So was I. Your mother and I could lose everything. You should have thought about that before handing over my information. He said nothing. I continued, did you give her my old ID? He stayed silent too long. That was enough. Dad. He exhaled. We found it after that dinner. Your mother kept it. Stephanie needed it. I closed my eyes. There it was. Not lost. Not misplaced. Taken, kept, and handed over when it became useful. My father rushed on. It was supposed to be temporary. She was supposed to stay at the hospital. We were going to figure it out. You were going to figure out how to make me responsible without asking me. No, he snapped. We were trying to protect the baby. Then why did you make my children unsafe? For once, he had no answer. I ended the call. Then I saved the recording. My hands were shaking so badly Andrew had to take the phone from me and place it in the cup holder. He pulled over before we reached our street and turned off the car. For a moment, we just sat there. Then he said, you don't have to be calm to be right. I started crying. Not the controlled crying I had done in front of officials. Not the silent tears at the hospital window. This was exhausted crying that came from somewhere deep in my chest. Andrew held my hand and let me fall apart. When I finally caught my breath, I said, they're going to hate me. He nodded. Some of them will. I'm going to lose everyone. He looked at me then. No. You're going to find out who is only staying because you were useful. That sentence stayed with me. That night, as I packed copies of documents into a folder, I realized something painful. I had spent years trying not to lose my family. But maybe I had already lost them every time they asked me to shrink my pain so Stephanie's could fill the room. Maybe I lost them when my mother saved my old ID instead of returning it. Maybe I lost them when my father decided my children being questioned was acceptable damage. The report didn't destroy the family. It only put the truth in writing. The police station was quieter than I expected. I don't know why I imagined noise. Maybe because the decision felt so loud inside my body. But the building itself was ordinary. A woman typing at a front desk. A man filling out paperwork near the wall. A vending machine humming near a row of plastic chairs. Andrew walked beside me, close enough that our shoulders almost touched. I carried a folder against my chest. Inside were copies of the hospital form, my work records, messages from my parents, screenshots of texts, and the recording of my father admitting what they had done. Officer Kevin met us in a small interview room. He was professional, not dramatic. He asked questions slowly. When I got ahead of myself, he brought me back to the timeline. When did you notice the old ID missing? Who had access to your family paperwork? When did Child Services contact you? What did your mother say? What did your father admit? Each answer felt like pulling thread through skin. I did not embellish. I did not scream. I did not say Stephanie deserved anything. I said what happened. That was all. At one point, Officer Kevin paused the recorder and slid a box of tissues toward me. Take your time, he said. I looked at the tissues, then at the folder. My whole family says I'm doing this to punish her. He didn't respond right away. Then he said, are you? There was anger in me, of course. There was betrayal. There was a part of me that wanted my parents to feel one fraction of the fear they had placed inside my home. But punishment was not why I was sitting there. No, I said. I'm doing this because if I don't, their lie stays attached to me. He nodded and turned the recorder back on. I signed my statement with a hand that trembled only once. Afterward, Andrew and I walked back to the car in silence. The sun was too bright. The sky was too blue. It felt wrong that a day like that could look beautiful. The consequences came faster than I expected. By evening, Stephanie had been located and taken into custody. I didn't ask for details. I didn't want a dramatic version of it. I only needed to know the baby's file would no longer point at me as the mother. The hospital opened a formal review. My insurance company froze the claim while they investigated the identity issue. CPS updated my file to reflect that I was cooperating as a victim of identity misuse, not as the person who had given birth and left. Those words should have made me feel safe. Instead, I felt emptied out. Because every official step that cleared my name made my family angrier. My aunt called first. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was almost 3 minutes long. Amanda, I know you're upset, but there had to be another way. Your mother is devastated. Your father sounds broken. Stephanie is sick, and sick people need help, not punishment. I hope you can live with yourself. I deleted it. Then my cousin Melissa texted. You always wanted to be the perfect one. Congratulations. Ashley posted something vague online about people who choose paperwork over family. Ronald sent one message. Your parents may lose their savings over this. Hope it was worth it. I stared at that one for a long time. Their savings. Not my children. Not my name. Not the baby. Their savings. That was what finally convinced me I had done the right thing. Because even after everything, they were still measuring the damage by what it cost the people who caused it. My mother didn't call until the next morning. I almost didn't answer. Andrew said, you don't owe her a conversation. He was right. But I answered anyway. Her voice was flat. Are you happy now? No. Your sister is in a holding facility. I know. Your father has been on the phone all morning trying to figure out what this means for us. I know. You could have given us time. You had months. She inhaled sharply. That is not fair. What part? You act like we wanted this. I closed my eyes. I think you wanted Stephanie protected at any cost. You just didn't care that I was the cost. My mother began to cry again, but this time it didn't move me the way it used to. I heard it. I recognized it. But I did not step into it. You have no idea what it feels like to watch one child destroy herself, she said. I gripped the phone. You're right. I don't. But I know what it feels like to be the other child and realize my parents would feed me to the fire if it kept her warm. She gasped. That is a horrible thing to say. It was a horrible thing to live. For a moment, there was only breathing. Then she said, very quietly, if you continue with this, you are no longer part of this family. The old me would have panicked. The old me would have apologized just to keep the door cracked open. But that version of me had been sitting in a police station signing a statement while everyone else called it betrayal. So I said, then I guess I finally know what my place was. She hung up. A few minutes later, she texted me. I hope your clean record keeps you warm at night. Then she blocked me. That is how I ended up in the grocery store parking lot, engine running, phone face down, watching strangers live ordinary lives while mine split into before and after. I sat there for almost an hour. At one point, I looked through the windshield and saw a mother lifting a toddler out of a cart. The little boy dropped a stuffed animal, and she bent down to pick it up without even thinking. Such a small gesture. Automatic. Protective. I started crying again. Not because I regretted what I did. Because I wished protecting your children did not sometimes require burying the daughter you used to be. The daughter who wanted approval. The daughter who thought if she was responsible enough, helpful enough, and forgiving enough, her parents would eventually see her pain too. I drove home before sunset. Andrew was in the kitchen making dinner. Jacob was at the table doing homework with one sock on. Emily ran to me holding a plastic crown and asked if I wanted to be queen. I almost broke right there. Instead, I knelt down and let her put the crown on my head. Andrew looked at me from across the room. Are you okay? He asked. I looked at my children. Safe. Loud. Messy. Mine. No, I said. But I think we will be. That night, after the kids were asleep, I checked my phone one more time. There were more messages. More blame. More people explaining forgiveness to the person who had been robbed of a choice. I didn't answer any of them. I placed Rebecca's card in the kitchen drawer. I saved copies of everything in a folder. I changed passwords. I froze what needed to be frozen. I made appointments, answered official calls, and did the boring, exhausting work of untangling my life from someone else's lie. I don't know what will happen to Stephanie. I don't know what will happen to Amy. That is the part that still hurts most. I hope that baby ends up somewhere safe. I hope someone holds her gently. I hope one day she learns that she was never the problem. The adults around her were. As for my parents, I don't know if I'll ever speak to them again. Maybe they will spend the rest of their lives saying I destroyed the family. Maybe my relatives will keep repeating their version until I become the cold daughter, the selfish sister, the one who chose paperwork over blood. But paperwork did not betray them. I did not create the hospital file. I did not hand over my own ID. I did not tell my sister to use my name. I only refused to carry the lie after they placed it in my arms. That is the part one keep coming back to. For years, my family called me strong because it was easier than admitting they kept putting weight on me. This time, I used that strength differently. Not to rescue Stephanie. Not to protect my parents from consequences. Not to keep the peace. I used it to protect my children. And if that makes me the villain in their story, then maybe I can live with that. Still, some nights, I wonder if there was another way. A softer way. A way where Amy stayed safe, my children stayed untouched, and my parents finally told the truth before I had to force it into the open. I don't know. Maybe I crossed a line that can never be uncrossed. Or maybe the line was crossed the moment my family decided my life was theirs to use.